Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about updating you on the new changes we've made to our data handling tools, 2Count and 2Graph. We'll jump straight in by looking in the Tools area. And down in the Maths and Data Handling area, you'll see we've got our pictogram tool called 2Count and our graphing tool called 2Graph. We'll start with the pictograms. And you'll notice that when you open up 2Count, you'll be presented with two options. The first option allows you to use the simplified mode. Pretty much does what it says on the tin. It allows children to be able to add items, remove items, and it has a few accessibility options with a visual setup as to the different colorings that might be applicable for different learners. And then in the advanced mode, we've got more features that allow you to be able to interact with the data that's been entered. So we'll start by looking at the simple mode. When you select it, you'll be offered choices of different items that you can include in your pictogram. There's lots of items that you might commonly use as part of data collection in your class. However, if you have bespoke items that you've been counting, then you can opt for the Choose Own option. You'll notice that when you do this, the images at the bottom of each column will be blank. However, if you click on the little pencil icon, it will allow you to choose from various different icons. A simple way is also to search. So if you're wanting to find objects in the classroom that you might be counting, you can type in the word classroom and then you can add the image into each of the different columns. Now, all of the pictograms allow you to create your own title. So you can quite simply just click on the top banner and type in the title for your pictogram. Children can enter their data by either clicking on the plus and minus options, or alternatively, just by clicking on the column itself, it will allow the children to enter in the details. What's really useful is, depending on the number of items that you'll be counting, you can add additional columns or you can remove columns accordingly. So you can make the chart as bespoke to the size and sample of whatever it is that you are observing or recording. If you want to alter the visual look of your chart, just click on the settings icon at the top, and then you can choose the different backgrounds and colours. What's really useful is if you want to be able to create any displays or incorporate any of your charts and graphs into any other piece of work, then when you click on the menu option at the top, you can export your chart as a PNG file if you click download, or as you can see here, if you right click on the image, you can save, copy or print it. What's really useful is if you want children to incorporate these into other Purple Mash pieces of work, as long as you save the file, so here I'll just call it demo, and once it's been saved, it can then be added into any writing frame, for example, on Purple Mash that you may wish the children to then explain and describe what it is they've found as part of their data collection. Okay, we'll take a look at the advanced mode now, which allows children to interact a little bit more with their data. You'll see that now they can sort their data according to size. They can reorder items, they can shade rows, and they can have images represent whole 2 or 10 items. So if I click on that now, you'll see that it allows me to make a choice before I start creating my pictogram. I need to choose whether one image represents one item, whether an image represents 2, or whether an image represents 10. So I'm going to start by clicking on the middle one. So each image is going to represent 2. Now by default, it's popped me in the counters section. Now I'm going to make a bespoke activity for my class, and it's all going to be about the ways that we travel to school. So ways we travel to school. So just like in the simplified mode, I can click on the title at the top and it shows me what my graph is going to be about, what my pictogram will be about. We've now got a key, and because we're still viewing the counters, it shows us that one full circle represents 2 items and half a circle represents 1 item. Well, in this instance, if we're looking at methods of transport, I'm going to edit this accordingly. So you'll see that in the advanced mode, not only can we change the image, but we've also got a label that we can add text to. So if this is ways that we get to school, I might choose people who can drive to school. I'm going to change this one, search for walk, and I'll choose a pair of legs here. And so I can update the image and the text accordingly. So I'm just going to type cycle. And I'll do one last one, I'll do a bus. Now you can see here that I don't need these additional options here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them by clicking on the red column option, and it will remove them from my pictogram. I can always add additional columns at a later date should I wish, and it will always remember what the pre-existing image was. Now in this case, just like before, I can either use the plus icon or I can tap on the column and it will add the relevant number and the images. You'll notice the key has been updated to reflect the image. So one whole picture of a car represents 2 people who've used that method, and half a car represents 1 person. So in this instance, in relation to the end of Key Stage 1 expectations of children being able to look at part images and understand and calculate their value, here children could work out that the number of people who've driven equates to 9. So you'll see that if I click on and add to all the different columns, it will then populate with the relevant number and the associated image. You'll notice as well that as I move my cursor along the different columns, each column is highlighted with a purple outline. This allows me to manually move columns around should I want to. If you want the computer to automatically reorder things, then you can use the sort ascending and descending option at the top here. So by clicking on that, it will move things in ascending order or descending order accordingly. As well as the colour options like we had in the simplified mode, if we click on the settings cog when we're in advanced mode, we now also have a few options to choose from. For example, we can remove the key option so it's not visible. We can choose whether the scale is shown or whether children would have to calculate it themselves. And we can also choose whether rows are shaded. So in this case, each 5 rows will be shaded different colours. And just like on the simplified mode, you can choose different background images should you wish. Now, just like simplified mode as well, I can export this as an image, I can download it, I can save, copy and print by right-clicking on it. That will then allow me to be able to use these lovely pictograms as displays, or to be able to maybe record them in children's books if you need to. Now I might wish for children to be able to write about this in a writing template on Purple Mash. So if I click Save Now and just call this Demo, then I can at a later date incorporate the contents of this pictogram into a writing template for me to be able to explain the data that is shown. Right, moving on now to our second data handling tool that we've made some updates to is 2Graph. Now 2Graph has had some really useful updates that will allow both children and teachers to be able to really pick apart the data that you're looking at and to be able to compare and contrast data and how it's presented by looking at more than one different graph type. Now when I open 2Graph, I'm straight into my data area. So we've got a table on the left, and when this is populated with information, then it will create the relevant graphs in this space here. Now you can see on the left-hand side, my data table is currently blank, with blank items and blank numbers. What's really nice is the intuitive nature of this. For example, if you were doing favourite colours in the class, if I was to type in a colour, for example, blue, you'll notice that the colour icon on the right-hand side is immediately updated. So that's a nice time saver. You can also manually change these should you wish, just by clicking on them and choosing from the colour options. Now I'm going to go with a theme that I was doing in the pictograms. I'm going to look at methods of transport. So in order for me to give my chart a title, I can click on the banner at the top here and I can give it the same title as my pictograms. So ways we travel to school. Now, as you can see, I need to enter data into the table in order to create the graph. So on the left-hand side here, I'm going to just name my axes. So I'm going to have this being called methods of transport. And then I'm going to have this one being number of children. Now, when I add my text value, it won't automatically update with an image, unfortunately, but you can change the colour to suit your personal preferences. So I'm going to just have a car, I'm going to have walking, and then bus and cycle. And if I add my value by clicking on the appropriate part in the table, I'm going to click on number 9, and then 8, 7, and 3. And you'll see straight away it's updating my graph accordingly. So we've got the values of the axes that have been reflected from the headings on the columns in the table. And now you'll notice that if I hover over each of the column, it will show me a pop-up of the colour and the numerical value and the title of each column. So really nice way for children to be able to easily navigate and find the information that they want. Obviously, as I mentioned, you can click on the colours and update it to reflect any personal preferences you might have with regards to colours. I might change that one to be a bit like that. There we go. And you'll notice by default, it's put me straight away into this block graph, the vertical block graph. If I select an alternative one, it will show them side by side. So a great chance for children to be able to discuss which viewpoint is probably the most helpful for them to be able to decipher the information and the data. You can display up to 4 different graphs on one page. If I try and add a 5th, it will remove the first one in the list. So if I add a line graph now, you'll notice it's deselected the first option. So you can pretty much cherry pick the different charts and graphs that you want to be able to see, to compare and contrast. And this allows children to be able to see the relationship between the data in the table and the graphs that it creates. If I'm back to looking at just a simplified bar chart here, I can choose which scale I can see. So at the moment it's going up in jumps of 1, but I can change that accordingly by clicking on the plus and minus option. Should I want to add any more columns or remove any, I can choose the up and down options, and these will add extra rows within my table if I need to incorporate extra items. What's useful as well is at the moment we're seeing this side by side, but depending on your screen orientation, it might be useful for your children to see things stacked vertically. So you can toggle between these two methods. As you can see, my current screen lends itself to actually stick with the original viewpoint, but as you can see, you do have that option. What's really useful as well is if you're wanting children to make some notes on the data that they're interacting with, if they click on the text icon, then they can see a notes box appear, and I can tell that using a car is the most common way to get to school. So children can add their own text explanations for the data, and if they do print out these charts, the text will be included as well. Now, what's really impressive as well with this new feature, this new version of 2Graph, is the ability to add more than one set of data. So in this case, if I was wanting to compare children in class 1 with children in class 2, all I need to do is to add another column in my table. If I click on this, then you can now see it's overwritten my title for class for number of children, but it's still kept the y-axis, so the scale is representing the number of children. But in this case, if I want to compare class 1 with class 2, I can just click on the pencil icon and I can change the names of the different sets of data. And as with the single set, you can choose a particular colour that represents each different set of data. And as you can see, you can add multiple sets should you wish, and you can remove them accordingly. So if I now add some data to that, there we go. So here it's automatically populating my graph to reflect both sets. So I can quite clearly see here that class 1 is represented with the mustard yellow colour and class 2 is represented with the blue. And now whichever graph style I choose, I will be able to compare and contrast the two different class sets of data. What's particularly impressive, I really like this one, is the pie chart. So it has chart in chart, so you can really quite easily compare the size of each part of the pie chart as to which data set has larger and smaller sections. So really useful and quite an impactful way of being able to incorporate data analysis in a very simplified visual manner that you can then incorporate into other pieces of work should you wish. Now, it's really useful if you've got some colleagues who might benefit from the changes that we've made, and you might think that this is a useful tool for them, then by all means direct them to the video tutorials in the top corner. These are really useful, very quick overview guides as to how you can get yourself around 2Graph, how to create graphs and adapt the data sets as well. Okay. So now if I wanted to save this and incorporate it into some writing that I'm doing across the curriculum, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this piece of work into my work folder. And then if I want to explain my findings, all I need to do is go to one of my writing frames. So I'm just going to find quite a simple what I have learned. So obviously you can choose whichever one is most appropriate for your activity. I'm just going to open this one here, and I'm going to put, what was the title of my graph? Ways we travel to school. And then I can explain we have been investigating, and I'll leave the rest to your imagination. As you can see, children have got the option to write as much or as little as they like. The key thing here is to import the image to give that visual representation that they can then explain in their text. So you'll see here that I've got an image box. If I click on the upwards arrow, I can then import any work that I've saved either in my Purple Mash file library, or I can upload it from my device if I've saved an image of the graphs there. So I'm just going to navigate and find that pie chart, and it should be able to then give me the chance to see which part of the data I want to display in my work. So I think I'm just going to mainly have the actual charts rather than the tables, and now I can incorporate that into my piece of writing, and I can then give my evidence. I can see that, and then we can explain using the pictorial example for reference. So hopefully that's just given you an idea as to not only how you can create and interact with data using Purple Mash, but also how you can extend it beyond a math lesson and actually get some reasoning in there, incorporate it in a cross-curricular approach, and just maybe make it a little bit more engaging and interactive for your learners. So hopefully you found this webinar useful. By all means, if you want to find any more information out, do get in touch with us. You can either drop us an email at cpd@2simple.com, or feel free to have a look at all of our videos on our YouTube channel. Just Google 2Simple TV. Thanks for watching and happy purple mashing, everyone.